it was quiet on Baltimore's streets following the first night of curfew enforcement. In Kenya, Somali refugees fear forced repatriation. And a Baltimore mother gives her rioting son a very public dressing down, and along the way becomes an internet sensation. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Tonight, Nigerian military officials say troops rescued 200 girls and 93 women on Tuesday from 3 camps in the vast Sambisa forest in the country's northeast. They had been held there by the militant group Boko Haram. It is not clear if any of those freed are part of the Chibok schoolgirls kidnapped a year ago. Leaders of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign say that while the rescue of the girls and women is good news, they're not celebrating yet.
These same quarters have come out severally to say that they've rescued girls, they've rescued women and all that. But sometimes we don't get to confirm the authenticity of that news. So we're waiting that they release an official statement, and we would also do our verification process to be sure that indeed there's been rescue of some women and girls.
Well, for more on the rescue, Cynthia Ari of Channels TV joins us by telephone from Lagos. Hello, Cynthia.
Hello, Vincent.
Yes, now we just heard from a representative of the Bring Back Our Girls, and she's saying, well, we're not celebrating yet because we need more verification and authentication. What are you getting? What is the government showing?
Well, there's criticism for that statement because, in truth, the Bring Back Our Girls campaign has been the issue that has dominated the headlines in terms of abductions. But this is worth celebrating because despite the fact that the Bring Back Our Girls highlights, what happened over a year ago, there have been abductions which preceded that event as well as after that, but they just did not make news. So even though she's a representative and saying there's no jubilation yet, I can tell you for certain that there is a jubilation to the extent that we're seeing the military performing. Yeah. They're relentless in their efforts to bring the Boko Haram sect to their knees.
Yeah.
Just because it didn't make headlines doesn't make it any less important that people, about 293 number, have been rescued.
Yeah, what they're saying is that the government has in the past claimed that people have been rescued, but people never get to prove, they never get to see the faces of those who have been rescued. Is there any proof this time around?
Well, the government has been a bit tight-lipped. I think it wants to have all its facts together instead of having to retract a statement, confirm and then retract, as was the case initially, what we saw happen with the Chibok girls when they said they had rescued them and then went back to say, okay, no, we hadn't done that. So I think that the government is learning from its past mistakes. It's not rushing to make any announcements really concerning this until it's been verified, investigations have been carried out to know for certain that these are even Nigerians to begin with before we say, okay, we succeeded in finding 293 abducted women and girls.
Yeah, very quickly, Cynthia, is it known, even if it's just a rough estimate, how many people, women, men, kids have been kidnapped over that period of time?
Well, from the reports we get, especially from the north central, where there's a lot of, where the Boko Haram threat is more present than other parts of Nigeria, we understand that boys are abducted almost on a weekly basis, and they're forced to join the group, and also girls also go abducted. And in this case, the boys are often used as soldiers, or they're brought into the group. Well, the girls are usually used as human shields and also for suicide cases, because in a couple of months back, we were seeing lots of cases of female suicide bombers. So there is a theory which suggests that is the reason for which females are used or abducted, because there's less suspicion attached to them. There's not really an estimate out there because most of these incidents, sadly, they go unreported. So we can't say for certain that 10 people are kidnapped in a day or 15.
Well, Cynthia, we just hope for the best. Thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Yes, Cynthia Ari of Channels Television reporting live from Lagos. Well, the United Nations says it is beginning to distribute food and medicine Wednesday in the area near the epicenter of Saturday's earthquake in Nepal, where the death toll has climbed past the 5,000. The World Food Programme's efforts around Gorkha come as Nepalese officials pledged that today would bring improvements in the government's response for those in need of food, water and shelter. A resident of Kathmandu describes the deplorable living conditions.
We haven't had any relief. We are very hungry. We haven't had anything to drink. We haven't been able to sleep. I have a 7-year-old child who is sleeping in the open. It's getting cold and people are getting pneumonia. The government has done nothing. Down with this government.
Well, rescue workers are continuing to sift through the rubble in search of survivors. The United Nations estimates the earthquake has affected 8 million people, more than 25% of Nepal's population, with 1.4 million people in need of food. Well, hundreds of people marched in the outskirts of Burundi's capital on Wednesday in a fourth day of protests against President Nkurunziza's decision to run for a third term. A chanting crowd started gathering early in the morning and set up barricades on a major street in the capital, Bujumbura. Nkurunziza's government is intensifying its crackdown on the protesters, a move that has angered many. Police raided and shut down the Radio Broadcasters Association studio and closed private radio station Radio Publique Africaine for broadcasting live on the protests. The United States has warned that it will take steps against those behind any violence. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry begins a trip to Africa and South Asia on Thursday. Counter-terrorism discussions will top his agenda during stops in Djibouti and Kenya. His visit to Kenya comes just weeks after militants from the terror group Al-Shabaab massacred 147 people at Garissa University College. Linda Thomas-Greenfield, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, who will be traveling with Kerry, talks about the expectations of the stops in Africa.
The primary purpose for both of the stops is to reaffirm our very strong bilateral relations with these governments, but also to discuss issues of mutual concern. In particular, in Djibouti, we want to thank the Djiboutian government for their welcome to our military operations out of Djibouti and Camp Lemonnier, but also on their support for assisting with the evacuations out of Yemen.
Well, for more on the Secretary Kerry's impending visit to Africa, VOA's Pam Dockin joins us live from the State Department. Hello, Pam.
Hi. Well, Vincent, as you mentioned, one of the primary goals of this trip is security. The State Department says Secretary of State John Kerry will focus on security cooperation in the wake of attacks such as the one carried out by Al-Shabaab earlier this month at the university in Kenya. The United States has been involved in efforts to fight Al-Shabaab. It's been assisting the African Union troops. It also has been doing drone missions over the region. Linda Thomas-Greenfield says the U.S. is always reassessing its approach to dealing with threats like Al-Shabaab. And she said that considering that the number of attacks that the group has carried out outside of Somalia has grown, it shows that the group is on the defensive, and it's now searching for weak areas in other parts of Africa.
Now, Pam, we know that following that attack at the Garissa University College, the Kenyan government said that it's going to close down the massive Dadaab refugee camp in that region. What did the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs say about that?
Well, yes, Kenyan officials have raised concerns that Al-Shabaab has been using refugee camps like Dadaab in northern Kenya to launch attacks. Linda Thomas-Greenfield says it's not a new issue, but one that has come up several times since she has been in office. She said the primary point to keep in mind is that refugees are victims. They are victims of Al-Shabaab just as other people are. She said that she does not believe that this camp is a source for Al-Shabaab, but that everything that can be done, possibly can be done, should be done to protect the people at this camp from the militant threats and also from the group's influence.
Now, Pam, very quickly, what is really the purpose of the trip to Djibouti, if you can tell us a little more?
Well, Djibouti is a military hub for the United States. Camp Lemoyne is based there. And during the trip, Secretary Kerry plans to meet with base personnel. Djibouti also has been playing a pivotal role in the evacuation of Americans and other foreigners from Yemen. It's been serving as a stopover point. But in spite of this strong military presence, Djibouti suffers from high unemployment and a relatively high rate of poverty. Thomas Greenfield says the U.S. has been engaged with the government to find ways to provide additional assistance, mostly in the area of job training and other opportunities.
Well, thank you very much, Pam, for joining us today. Pam Dawkins reporting live from the State Department. Now to the U.S., where Baltimore demonstrators took to the streets again Tuesday after Monday's rioting over the death of a 25-year-old black man while in police custody. VOA's Victoria Mackey reports from Baltimore, where authorities enforced an overnight curfew.
Late-night tensions between police and protesters briefly lit up this Baltimore neighborhood Tuesday. A small group of what officials called agitators defied a city-mandated 10 p.m. curfew, lobbing glass, plastic bottles, and garbage at the officers.
An hour after the beginning of the curfew here in Baltimore, there appear to be few, if any, protesters left on the streets. This comes after a day of largely peaceful protests throughout the community.
The same neighborhood near Pennsylvania and North Avenues, where looters on Monday night set fire to a pharmacy, was the scene of a more festive demonstration on Tuesday afternoon. Organizers and neighbors said they want to show a different side of Baltimore than the destruction used by some protesters to make a statement.
This is our hood, our home. We protect, we don't destroy. We're here to build and grow. We got little ones to come up and all that. What are they going to have to see? What are they going to have to say? What type of history are we going to leave for them if we let this go like this?
In addition to the charred pharmacy, a second massive fire that began the same night as the riots remains under investigation.
The last time I smelled this smell was in 1968. I was a little kid, and the smell smells exactly the same. And it's the smell of pain and suffering. It's a smell that just tears your heart apart. To see this building or all across the city, I see pain, I see suffering, I see cry out for help.
Gatherings are expected to continue as residents await the release from the Baltimore Police Department on Friday of more information about the death of Freddie Gray. The curfew will remain in place until next week.
Well, Victoria Mackey now joins us live via Skype from Baltimore. Victoria, if you can describe for us, what is the mood like today in Baltimore?
So what we're seeing today is, frankly, a lot of calm, and we've seen that happening over the last 24 hours, despite a few skirmishes last night with police and a few very, very isolated protesters. It has been largely peaceful.
Now, there has been a lot of talk. What's really happening in Baltimore? Is it a race issue? Is it a police-citizen relation issue? Or is it a class problem?
I think it's all of the above. At least that's what folks are telling us. You know, we were talking to a lot of people on the streets. Really, you know, what they're telling us is this is about Freddie Gray. This is about his death and police brutality and police accountability. But at the same time, it's bringing up a lot of issues that Baltimore residents have been facing for, frankly, what they were telling us decades about social and economic inequality and justice.
Now that this has happened, is it a wake-up call? Are the officials saying they're going to try and address some of these issues in a different way?
It remains unclear at this point exactly what. I mean, right now, officials seem to kind of be dealing with the immediate problem, which is making sure the curfew that is going to go on for another week is being enforced. You know, what the long-term decisions are going to be haven't really surfaced yet.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you probably have heard and listened to the citizens, what do they want?
It's a long list of what they want. At the same time, it's really just, it's about equality and it's about justice. You know, throughout multiple neighborhoods that we visited, that's really what people want. They want accountability. They want an end to what they say is police brutality. And it comes down to economics and social issues. They want better schools. They want better jobs, all of that.
Now, some have said, well, those who participated in this distraction are not necessarily representative of Baltimore. But at the same time, some seem to sympathize and say it is a cry for recognition, a cry for understanding.
We've definitely heard both of those opinions. One thing that we heard repeatedly yesterday in the neighborhood where the CVS pharmacy was burned on Monday night was neighbors concerned that a lot of the people who were kind of conducting the more aggressive actions were not able to channel their energy in other ways. I talked to the head of the library system here who is trying at a very small level to make changes in small changes in the community to help kids channel that energy. But there definitely are people who believe that they can make a bigger and more powerful statement in taking more aggressive actions.
Well, now, in terms of concerns about businesses, do people fear that some people may take their businesses away from Baltimore?
It's been a weird week as far as businesses go because of the curfew last night. A lot was shut down. I mean, trying to get anything to eat last night after the curfew at 10 o'clock was difficult. So I think businesses are probably feeling a significant impact on that. But again, I mean, Baltimore, business owners in Baltimore, they say this has been a struggle for a while. This isn't new. This isn't in the last 2 weeks. So they're really talking about more macro concerns.
Well, Victoria, thank you very much for your excellent reporting.
Thank you.
Victoria Maki reporting live via Skype from Baltimore, Maryland. Now we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, child migrants cross the Mediterranean Sea alone to face an unknown future in Europe. Stay with us.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
Welcome back. Now, among the thousands of migrants making the deadly voyage by boat to Europe, there are unaccompanied girls and boys. Some are being sent by relatives to earn money, while others are orphaned or fleeing war. And Ridgewell is following the migrant trail through Europe and report from a shelter in the Sicilian town of Caltagirone.
An old farmhouse in the mountains of Sicily shelters some of the most traumatized refugees arriving on Italy's shores. Officially, they're called unaccompanied minors. All the boys living here made the deadly journey across the Mediterranean alone, with no parents or relatives. Under Italian law, we cannot show the boys' faces. Alassane made his voyage in the depths of winter. He says 15 people died on the boat.
I saw my best friend die in my arms because it was so cold, so freezing. We hadn't eaten anything. We were lost at sea.
17-year-old Ivorian Wata Ali was orphaned as a boy. He and his older brother moved around looking for work, first to Burkina Faso, then to Libya, where they got caught up in the civil war.
My brother went out to work every day. He would come home now and then to eat and then go back to work. Then one day he didn't come back, so a friend and I decided to come to Italy. We saved our money and got on the boat.
Daniel Cotugno runs the refugee centre in the hilltop town of Caltagirone.
When the
boys arrive here, their state of mind is terrible because they are traumatized. They have passed through Libya, where they have experienced extreme violence. When they face certain death, they prefer to choose the risk of the sea journey, where there is a possibility of surviving.
To many of the boys, Cotugno serves as a father figure.
Very few of them have a clear idea about their next steps, and with time, talking to them, their needs start to become clear. As teenagers, just like Italian teenagers, to become football players, to study, to work, so they can help their parents in their country. But a lot of their parents or brothers were killed.
They dream of playing football for perhaps Barcelona or Chelsea, but they would happily seize any chance to work.
The boys here are free to come and go as they please and even leave the shelter altogether if they want to. But many choose to stay and to find out if they'll be resettled by the Italian government so they can start rebuilding their lives.
Shaidu from Gambia says he's very grateful for the help, but is keen to move on.
I'm in this camp about 4 months now, but thank God. But I will like to move in this camp, to go to the community, so that I can know how I will build my future tomorrow. I can plan.
The boys' status as unaccompanied minors gives them a better chance of being allowed to stay in Europe. Until that decision is made, this hilltop home offers safety and an opportunity to stop a while on their journey to find a better life. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, Caltagirone, Italy.
Well, the Kenyan government has ordered the closure of the massive Dadaab refugee camps in the northeastern part of the country due to concerns about security threat from the mostly Somali population. As VOA's Gabe Josler reports, refugees have mixed feelings about leaving a place they have called home for more than 20 years.
More than 350,000 people, most of them Somali, call the sprawling Dadaab refugee camps home. Bilado Hassan came here from Mogadishu in 1992, one of the early arrivals fleeing violence at home.
At first, I was hopeful that I would go back home, but after about a year or two, the fighting got worse. There was no change, and so I got resigned to living here and accepted that I would live here.
Since coming here, Bilado has become a mother and a grandmother, one family, 3 generations of refugees. While Bilado remembers a life before Dadaab, her daughter Sophia does not.
I'm happy to be born here. This is the place where I'm from, and I've had my own family. I've never been anywhere else.
But even long-standing refugees may soon get the boot. After the April 2nd terrorist attack on Garissa University killed 148 people, the government ordered Dadaab closed within 3 months because of fears the camps are harboring terrorist cells. The UN refugee agency, UNHCR, already has a voluntary repatriation program, sending residents back to places in Somalia deemed safe. Ibrahim Hussein, feeling pressed by the government, says he is ready to try Somalia again.
The country is kind of sliding backwards. Each time there's an attack, they say it's the refugees and they have to be taken back.
UNHCR representative Maawiya Issa says more refugees are seeking repatriation.
By the moment, there are those ones that are expressing fear. They're saying we want to go back, reason being the 3 months directive.
The Dadaab refugee camps are more than just a feeding center with free handouts. It's more like a small town where people own their own stores and restaurants. So business owners are afraid that if refugees are forced out, the whole economy is going to take a hit. Mohammed Farah, a refugee, runs this fabric shop in the camp.
The host community and the refugees come here, and if they are forced to leave, it means there won't be anybody coming here to buy anything.
Seeing few opportunities for work and education in Somalia, refugees are understandably reluctant to pull up their roots in Dadaab, but many feel they have no other choice. Gabe Joslo, VOA News, Dadaab, Kenya.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Why are some calling this woman the Mother of the Year? An explanation after the break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, here's what's trending. Amidst the terrible scenes of looting and violence in Baltimore, a furious mom staff intervention has people the world over applauding. Taya Graham is being hailed for doing her part to quell the violence when a video showed her smacking her son when she spotted him rioting and throwing rocks at police emerged earlier this week. The mother of 6 recognized her son even though he was wearing a black ski mask that covered much of his face. Baltimore Police Commissioner Anthony Batts even mentioned the clip at a press conference, saying, quote, "Take control of your kids. This is our city. Let's make a difference." The video made international headlines and had many saying the woman was the mom of the year. Well, next up, don't be so sad. One Direction fans. A British cosmologist, Stephen Hawking, offered advice to fans upset over Zayn Malik's departure from the band. My advice to any heartbroken young girl is to pay attention to the study of theoretical physics, because one day there may well be proof of multiple universes. It will not be beyond the realms of possibility that somewhere outside of our own universe lies another different universe, and in that universe, Zayn is still in One Direction. Malik quit the band last month, saying he wanted to live a normal life after 5 years of touring and performing. Well, and finally, keeping up with the Kardashians and Jenners. Kendall Jenner was a guest of honor in Los Angeles as Calvin Klein Jeans celebrated the global launch of its Mike Calvin's denim series. Now, the American model and reality TV star is the face of the campaign. She was joined by her mother, Kris Jenner, as well as her siblings, Khloe Kardashian, Kourtney Kardashian, and Kylie Jenner. And that is what is trending today. Well, and that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
Music is something that brings people together.
Music educates, it motivates, it's a bridge.
Music. Ali.
On
VOA.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent.